You're the MC.
Hi, welcome to the Monitoring Roundtable with the godfathers of monitoring, Sama Scomosaurus. I'm the bonus package, by the way, because I'm coming at the monitoring from a process perspective. So, Bob, you've been doing sessions on like what's new in 2016. So perhaps that's where to start, because that's where it starts from, right? From SCOM, and then maybe we can move into OMS.
Oh yeah, sure. So, actually, with the SCOM 2016, at first we were thinking not much is happening, right? So last year we had this conversation, and it seemed like, well, not too much was getting added. But in the last few months, I've been talking a lot with the product team, and so have some of you. And we actually found that there is a lot going on now. They're adding a lot of new features in TP5, especially since a few weeks ago released. And you can actually expect a lot more coming over the next version and the 2016 RTM, which is very interesting indeed. Yeah.
And would you pick one that you would say is, you're most excited about from what you've seen?
I think I'm not going to say the scheduled maintenance mode.
Scheduled maintenance. You can't not say that in some ways, though. No, but that's kind of neat.
Exactly. Well, that's a very cool one. I think the management pack tuning part is going to be very useful, especially for SCOM admins and everybody around, consultants who want to be quick in and quick out, to have a quick tuning methods. I mean, we all know the other methods we already had, but this is going to really speed up things in the monitoring space.
Cool. Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm going to bring John into this for a second, because you've also been around this whole monitoring thing. I usually have a challenge with people just thinking about Scormus Monitoring, because it's a whole lot more, right? Mm-hmm. So as we look at this whole hybrid world and the fact that we say an IT pro should evolve, how do you see SCOM playing a role in this new world? Because it's not just monitoring, because if you're just monitoring, it still sounds reactive to me.
Thanks, Sam. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, at least in the near to midterm, and the SCOM is going to be really adapted to your remediations, to an automation interface on premise. The OMS is ramping up quickly as a destination for display, for monitoring health. And there's also components available in Azure, of course, your Azure automation. That is in, let us be frank, that's in a V1 or
Sure.
a pre-V1. Mm-hmm. And so for the large enterprise that needs to make their money now, SCOM, PowerShell, SMA, integrations where appropriate in a hybrid model with their Azure counterparts, that is an absolute rock solid platform for business acceleration. And so I think particularly in the area of automation and remediation, examining events, whether they arise from OMS or from Operations Manager or another source, and then triggering other actions or prompting operators for the correct next steps. That's an area where SCOM is going to excel for a while.
That's cool. So I suppose Cameron and Dieter, you are my favorites to pick on, because when you've got sessions like monitoring your wife with SCOM, right? How do you see that play in that space? Because you guys, I don't deal with a lot of customers at the level at which you guys deal with. So how are your customers finding that transition and the better together story that you've been talking about at these sessions?
Well, it's a better together scenario, but it takes a lot of effort to convince customers that it's a better together scenario, because my personal opinion, in 2016 and even 2017, the biggest goal or the biggest challenge will actually be to convince customers that it's a better together scenario. Because on the one hand, they're holding off on investments on Operations Manager 2016 because they think that on-prem will not continue, because Microsoft is heavily investing in the cloud products. But on the other hand, they are not ready to go to the cloud due to internal company policies, but also some legal issues from time to time. Mm-hmm. So a lot of work when I put in a POC or whatsoever is just to convince them that it's a combination of both, that all their investments in the on-prem Operations Manager is not in vain, because they actually need to invest in a good on-prem operations manager and extend it to OMS, because it's not a replacement. A lot of times, in every session, by the way, I'm telling people that OMS is not a replacement. It's just giving you insights, but it's not a monitoring tool as such now. So, and that's one of the main things I'm focusing on in my sessions, but also at customers, just to position it right, because we are going so fast. We were talking about it, that there are private previews, there are private previews, there are public previews, there are things which are in general availability, but still so many things are added and deleted and whatsoever that it's for us almost impossible to keep track of all the changes. So imagine a customer who has no knowledge of what OMS is and where to position it. I see a lot of, let's say, opportunities, but also challenges in that field, that we need to convince everyone that it's actually here and it's here to stay. But operations manager is here and here to stay as well.
Yeah. And I think Microsoft is being really smart in terms of their integration on this. So to not breach the NDA piece, I won't give anything specific, but I'll say that with Operations Manager 2016, you're going to get some new functionality only if you're working with OMS. So they're kind of making that better together story work really well by providing new functionality that you get from having the two of them put together.
Cool. And, from my side, it feels like I've been playing the talk show host. But I come at OMS and SCORM.
Good job, by the way. So we're going to do this again. So.
Yeah. Well, I come at it from a process perspective. And my take on all of this is, having worked with a lot of large corporate organizations, the lessons learned from the process side of SCORM is going to be huge when you transition into OMS. Because they started bringing in better role-based security. And I remember going into SCORM, installing it for the first time. I'm like, ugh, this is years ago. It's like, now what? And I spoke to the SCORM admin. It's like, you've got the advanced operator, you've got the read-only. There's a lot of planning that goes on there. And I can see that, OMS is getting there. There's a lot of talk about the what and the how. But there's still a lot of work to be done. And I can see that it will be the lessons learned from doing SCORM properly that would actually allow you to get the benefits out of OMS. I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah. Well, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take the talk show host from you for a second. And as we're talking about OMS, if my contribution to this little 15-minute short, I talked about this in my session and some people grooved on it, so I want to share it. And that OMS, it is the destination because it is a platform service. Okay, when we talk about IT, in fact, our entire industry, platform as a service is the final destination for all services. It's the low watermark where economic and business forces are driving all technologies. So OMS is Microsoft's monitoring and management platform of the future, of the mid and near future, but it is a true platform service. Yeah. It is infinitely scalable, and it removes the complexity in the architecture and the planning that have been slowed the uptake of more complex IaaS and on-premise services like System Center. So regardless of your near-term planning is going to be highly driven by where you're at. But the destination is clear. And so as much time as you can invest in learning about OMS, about using the services that are available today, Azure Site Recovery in the new Azure portal is all, is going to surface in OMS. So start using the services that are available today that you can get value from immediately, and start walking in that direction. Everyone needs to do that to future-proof their business.
I totally agree with John, but I'll say in addition to that there's a lot of questions and understanding, or lack of understanding, around the cloud in general. If I go to the cloud, if I go to Azure, if I go to AWS, do I even need Ops Manager anymore? And let me be pretty definitive on that. Yes. It doesn't matter where your stuff is. If you have IaaS running someplace, on-prem, in cloud, in any vendor, you still have to monitor it, you still have to manage it, you still have all those responsibilities. In some ways, it's more complicated now because you now have multiple different locations that you may have these things in. So if you want, can I do all that in OMS? Right now, the current answer is no. So you really need to have Operations Manager specifically in the other System Center components to do the things you're doing right now in your business. But you want to keep an eye with where OMS is going, because that is the future of where things are going.
It's It's a thing I've also did in our session, I guess, that it's very key to actually find the right tool for the right scenario. Because at this point it's possible to do it in operations management, but it's also possible to do it in OMS. But one tool is better than the other, but it's possible in both. So you have you have a box of Lego bricks, but it's up to you to build your monitoring solutions actually. And you have bricks which are OMS stamped, and you have bricks which are operations manager stamped. And if you mix them, you get a solid construction, but still you need to actually make sure that you find the right bricks of the right kind.
Very true. I mean, I have a question for Bob, because I know one of the challenges that the operational directors had when we were talking about SCOM from an investment perspective. It's like, not only do you have this monitoring solution, you need to have monitors for the monitors. And then when I look at OMS, I see it as you can reduce the SCOM infrastructure and reduce the payload on investing more in scaling out your SCOM infrastructure just so that you have redundancy. So do you see the direction in the on-prem side being reduced because of this better together story?
I think at this moment, not yet. I think that will be my answer. Because still there isn't a real complete overlap in this, right? So all the monitoring pieces will still be in SCOM, and some of the log analytics and best practices and analysis assessments, they are going to be in OMS. And you can actually see it very well in the SQL management pack, where you have the monitoring in the SQL management pack in on-premise SCOM, and you will have the best practices analysis and the assessments in OMS. So this is actually how it really ties together, and being separate parts of the same puzzle, right? So this is how you make things better together. But I think still the on-premise SCOM will not really decrease in size, maybe with one quite clear exception, at least to us, I think, ACS.
Yeah.
So that is
infrastructure, right?
Exactly. That's a beast of a component. It's a huge database. You need extra infrastructure for it, and this is actually one thing you can put completely into OMS and have nearly on par functionality.
And a lot faster functionality.
And a lot faster with longer retention times, which is very important for business and compliance.
And more flexible.
Oh yes.
With the search queries in OMS, you can create your own reports. You're not bound by the reports that you get from ACS.
But to be devil's advocate, in ACS you have those reports, whereas in OMS you don't currently have those reports.
You need to do your search query.
Yeah, you need to write your own search queries based upon those. So if somebody wants to take that and blog that would be great.
Well, actually a number of these things are already being covered in OMS. For instance, account lockouts. There are default queries for there in the security solutions. So I think we can expect a lot more coming out of that, also out of the community, and out of other vendors who are working in this field, such as you.
Yeah, one of us.
So I think that this will be the way to go.
So Cameron, I'm just gonna put this one to you, because we've both been in the authoring world. One of the challenges I see is we no longer have this notion of spending a year writing an Unleash book, right? So
by the way, you got a lot of authors at this table here, just so you're speaking here.
I know.
So mastering author here, so you got the whole set.
I got the whole set. I've evolved, so I wrote an OMS course, right? But I've gone online, and I have to go and refresh the course after this week. So in terms of the future of SCOM and stuff like that, how do you guys see that bit shifting as well? Because we have to learn so fast, right? So how do you guys position yourself into that space, and how are we going to help people out there? Because to me, the learning aspect is one of the biggest barriers to actually adopting cloud.
Well, if I can jump in there.
Sure.
I think currently I am one of those assigned to the SCOM 2016 cookbook, which we will be writing in the coming month. But actually we can see now already that we are going to write this first based on TP5 software. So still preview software, which we will verify as soon as RTM comes out, and then publish it. But you will see, especially with the OMS, but also with these kind of extra features coming out in SCOM, the way the product team are working and now as well, like little pieces, adding them in update rollups and whenever, you will see a lot of content having to be updated every few months. Some things they always stay the same for years, and other things they will keep updating very quickly. And we've seen also for OMS that people are creating books, but they are online books. Yeah. So it basically means they are free to update one chapter at a time or one component at a time.
Yeah, I think the technology also needs to advance, though. The reality is, especially when you're writing on a cloud-based product, a paper approach to writing is not very effective anymore. It's not even reasonable in a whole lot of ways. So you really have to look at a better medium that allows you to be able to continually evolve the platform, which I don't think technology's really reached that point that it supports it well. And 1 second, and I'll hand it off to John. I would say a great example that I've seen recently is what Pete and Tao and Stanislav guys did with the Inside OMS book. They put that together phenomenally quickly. It was from what I understand, a few months. I mean, as an example, it took me almost a year to turn around the pieces that I had for the Unleashed book the last round. So I think a much more adaptable, much more agile approach to writing for books is going to have to be adopted going forward compared to what we've done historically.
Cameron, you took a word I was going to say, agile. I don't have a concrete answer to the post-book era. Yeah. What will it be? But it's coming to me that it's going to be a cloudy solution. In other words, whatever education and knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing mediums emerge, they're going to be self-service, they're going to be agile, they're going to be on demand, they're going to be granular. All the fundamental characteristics of a cloud service will have to apply to the community-based, shared resource pooling, education solution that's going to emerge, and we'll all be part of it. I mean,
if you open an OMS workspace, there's always something new in there. So how are you going to write a book on that? Because the book will evolve constantly, and if once it's printed, it's out of your hands. It's solid. So
I love analogies, and I'm going to test this one because we're getting close to the top of the hour. I believe that the educational space will move into passing your driving test, right? Once you learn how to drive, it's like, how do we capture passing your OMS driving test? Because when you hop into a new car, you may have a new button, right? The gear stick may be in a different place. But in my opinion, if you've passed your test, learning how to use the new button shouldn't be the core. It's staying safe on the road and obeying the rules of it. So that's my challenge to you guys to say, I'm thinking about that, but it would be good to sort of like, after this, just share some ideas on how do we actually capture that basic part of it, which is to say, if I need to drive OMS in this organization, I'm from the UK, so we drive on the right side of the road, right? These guys are from, Cameron is going to hit me now.
The correct side of the road?
The correct side of the road.
You're trying to say, let's believe that's technically
So
drive left, man.
Yeah, so that's my take on it. I mean, I don't drive in the US apart from Delaware because the roads are much more narrow and I follow people better. When we get onto all these huge lanes, I get lost. But, if I had to drive, I'll still be able to do it apart from turning on red. That's weird.
So anybody want to tag that? Sure. All right, go Bob.
So I think it will, like you said, it will go into the direction of, like the main things you need to learn, right? So in OMS, how to add solutions, maybe how to add connected data sources, work with the log queries, and add things to your dashboard, and later on maybe creating, solution views and dashboards. So these are the main parts, right? So whatever gets added, it will follow mainly these directions. I think we will see also, like to also jump back to the last part. I think things will become more electronic, more cloud-based. We also see a large pickup now of the Channel 9 videos. Like short bits who explain the main things you will have to learn. And all the MVPs have got access to that now, outside of even Microsoft first. And I think things will go into that direction very fast. Like learning main pieces, how to do things, and then the rest is just details, buttons, where they are, I mean, it doesn't matter anymore.
That's cool, because I mean, I also did 3 cookbooks, and the reason why I've done 2 Unleash books and the cookbooks, and what I loved about the cookbooks was the whole concept of recipes. If all I want to do is this, you could take this out. But if we're to go around now, you know, because Lee is getting nervous because we're close to like where he needs to switch over. So I'm done. I can talk for England and the world. So I think it'll be good for you guys to like, you know, send your final message one at a time, if that's cool with you. Start with DW.
Yeah. My final message is, I mean, it's not that cloud is bad and on-prem is good or otherwise. You just have to dig in and explore. I mean, it's very easy to start working with a subset of machines in OMS. Start finding out whether it's the right fit for your environment, but don't keep this in your backlog or something. Start working with it today, because Microsoft is moving fast to this direction. So if you don't want to become a scomosaur, you actually need to dig in and start working with this stuff. Don't be afraid of OMS, because there's so much knowledge out there. You can reach out to people who are already way beyond the intro of OMS. So there's a lot of knowledge on blogs and whatsoever out there. So just dig in and start working with it.
See, now Dieter just took all the good stuff that I was going to say, so I'm going to answer your question before that for my wrap up. So I don't know where the industry is going from a documentation perspective, but I can tell you where we're going on the stuff that we're building. So we're focusing on the concept of visual documentation, the ability to be able to create process flows and swim lanes within those, because those concepts still apply regardless of how the tech changes. So what happens is then you're just clicking on a top level link that shows you the flow. From there you can drill in, and then you're updating the underlying documentation pieces, as opposed to having to rewrite, massive portions of the documentation. So that's how we're approaching our documentation for my stuff.
Cool.
So.
Well, one of my messages is still try to not forget the on-premise monitoring while you are investigating and building up on your OMS speed and agility.
Okay, great. And I'll finish with a strategic direction that I recommend everyone follow, and that is understanding that a hybrid, hybrid is the world of today. If you're not hybrid, you're atypical. The spot on enterprise today is straddling the private, the shared, and the public spaces. So that is where I recommend people be today to stay competitive.
Right.
Well, it's been fantastic. I've been the bonus package, and always, as usual, thank you, Lee, the maestro behind these roundtables. Look forward to some more of these.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.